And the wilderness is where something like 75% of businesses end up, which is essentially one person who everything's on their shoulders and they're trying to survive, right? So this is survival stakes, and it's kind of like, it's like I've got to win business and I've got to deliver business and I've got to somehow have a CRM system and I've got to market myself and I've got to keep track of tax stuff and I've got like, what on earth was I thinking? And in many cases, what you'll discover in the wilderness is that you get the worst parts of having a job without the security and without the best parts of having a job, and you get the worst parts of having a business without the scalable upside of a business. So this is the reality for most people. They're not having a good time in business. They're a one person trying to survive, trying to wear everything on their shoulders. So we do not want to, that is definitely not the lifestyle business, by the way. There's a bunch of people out there talking about this solopreneur stuff. The reality of solopreneur stuff for most people is that it is not a great way to be. So here's where it begins to get interesting. We start doing something called team play, team dynamics, right? We start putting together a little bit of a team. And we put this little team together and suddenly we have a little bit of something magical called division of labor. You do the sales, I'll do the delivery, right? You look after the tax stuff and the bookkeeping stuff, and I'll look after the scheduling stuff. We start to kind of divide the work up a little bit and get a bit focused. And most boutiques are not necessarily getting liftoff. And the key thing with most boutiques is that they're geographically limited in some way. So the thing that keeps most boutiques stuck in the ground is that they define themselves in some way by geography. So they're the best in Birmingham, or they're the best in this particular area. So they're stuck in that little geography space, and they're typically trying to get their team together in a geography as well. So often you'll see boutiques that everyone has to turn up in one location, in one place. They're kind of stuck on this geography mindset, and that's one of the things that's pegging them down. What we're shooting for is this one, the lifestyle boutique, and this is where we're going to focus all of our energy here. Now, let me just share with you what's going on here. What's going on is that you've got a small team, typically 3 to 12 people, but they're getting supernormal profits, right? They're getting really healthy profits. They've typically got customers all over the world. Normally the team isn't in the same room a lot, right? They're not fixed on geography. They're focused on intellectual property, media, technology, software, those sorts of things. Now, the reason that we want to keep the business as a boutique, 3 to 12 people, is really because of complexity. And complexity is the enemy of scaling up. And mind you, I've had the performance business, or I've got the performance businesses, the bigger ones with 100 plus employees or 50 plus employees, right? Those ones get complex, and you're going to have team meetings, and you're going to have all sorts of consultants and support people and all that, lots of moving parts. But let's keep it nice and simple. When you've got 3 people, you only have 3 lines of communication, but as you get to 5 people, it's jumped up to 10 lines of communication. Once we get up to 12 people, we're at 66 lines of communication, and 14 people jumps it right up to 91 lines of communication. So as we're adding people, we're now into exponential complexity. My personal observation is that 12 seems to be the biggest number that can self-organize, and 8 is about optimal. Think about a dinner party. If you put 8 people around a table, it's more than possible to have one conversation all night where everyone's on the same page and everyone can interact with each other. You go up to 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Now, it's a little bit difficult. It's starting to split into 2 conversations, but if you put 13 around a table, it's definitely 2 or 3 groups. So now you've got this group up here having one conversation, this group up here having another conversation. Something happens around the 13 people where it just splits into a different level of complexity. When you get to 50 people, you've got 1,225 lines of communication. Multiply that by multiple ways to communicate. Did I phone you? Did I Slack you? Did I WhatsApp you? Did I email you? Like, did I Loom video you? Like, how did this communication happen? So one thing that is really common, and this is something you need to be aware of, between 13 and 50 people is what we call the desert. This is a really difficult time. This is too big to be small, too small to be big. You need systems to handle complexity, but you can't afford systems to handle complexity. You need to put all this stuff in place, but you feel like you're too small to have it in place. You've also got the original crew team, right? The people who were there at the beginning. They feel special because they were there at the beginning. And then you start hiring people who are qualified, and they feel special for being qualified. and they kind of like fight with each other a little bit, right? As to who's really special. So all this stuff happens in the desert, 13 to 50. They also start sleeping with each other between 13 and 50. That really does happen. Romantic possibilities open up between 13 and 50. Now, if you make it across the desert, you end up with a proper structure, and you've got team, and you've got hierarchies, and you've got teams of teams, and all this stuff's going really, really well. You've got systems and technology and budgets and all that sort of stuff. So you end up down that end. We're not talking about that. That's not really a lifestyle business. You've got to deal with building valuation. You've probably got to deal with investors. You've probably got to deal with debt. You've got to deal with other stakeholders, all of that stuff once you get to that performance business. So we're not going to talk about performance business here. We want to zoom right back to lifestyle boutique, 3 to 12 people, and we want to set some ground rules. So the ground rules are, I want you to have creative freedom. You get to work on the types of projects that light you up. Who likes the idea of creative freedom? Yeah. Location freedom. You can do that from anywhere in the world. Wouldn't that be cool? That if it gets a little cold in the UK, it happens from time to time. Sometimes, believe it or not, there are wet days and all sorts of stuff like that. You could say, actually, you know what? I know somewhere that's hot. Dubai's quite kind of hot, right? So you could be location freedom as well. And then time freedom, you're not selling your time. You're not actually selling hours. You're not pegged down to a particular start or finish time. So these are the three. This is the holy grail that we want to have. A lot of people say you can't have all three of those things. I think for most of human history, you definitely couldn't have those three things. But I think we're now living in a time where you can have those three things if you want those three things, mostly enabled by the times that we're in.